What up, guys? So there's an idea that I've talked about on the channel numerous times where I talk about disguising the technique that you're using by changing the grips. And a lot of times if like a technique stops working, one of the easiest ways to sort of make it new again is by changing the grip, by changing the way that your setup's used. And it works because a lot of times what happens is, and whether you think about this or not, if someone starts doing something to you, a lot of times your body will start to react to it even before you can mentally like figure out what's going on, right? Like very early on in jiu-jitsu, if you keep getting armbarred, you will start to pull your elbow back when someone uses a particular grip on your arm. You may not even recognize it. It happens just instinctively. So one of the things that we can do sometimes is changing our grips. Now, what does the changing the grips do? Changing the grips takes away the muscle memory that they've developed for the thing that you're doing. So if you always grab the arm a certain way, they begin to recognize that, oh, this feeling means this is happening, so I need to adjust to that. Whereas all of a sudden, if maybe you grab down here, it changes the feeling and takes away the recognition that they had. So I'm gonna show you 5 different ways to use the basic armbar from guard, and I'll show you some different grips you can use. And then you can take this ideal way with you with other techniques that you might use where, again, if it stops working, change the setup, change the grips that you're using, and you can make it new again and make it harder for your opponent, your training partners, whomever you're rolling with, to know that it's happening. So let's get into the video. All right, guys, so when it comes to a basic armbar from guard, what I'm typically looking for is I'm trying to find a way to get this arm to close to the center line of my body, right? If I can get his forearm right to about the center line of my body, I'm in a position where I can go for the armbar. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do that, and again, this is where these grip changes are gonna come into place. So the basic armbar that I learned in the beginning of jiu-jitsu would be, someone's posting here, I go underneath, I go over, I grab the arm and I pull it. I maintain a good strong grip on the back of the tricep, and then this hand would go into the collar, and this would be used for distance control. So if he gets too close, I push him away. He gets too far away, I yank him back. I keep him where I want him. And then I can either swing my hips open or I can push off the hip, cut the angle up, using this leg here to clamp down on the person's back, slide in, boom. Armbar from guard, broke his arm. All right, so then you get into a situation where I grab this and he's going for an armbar. So what does he do? Pulls his darn arm back, okay? So this is where now we'll get into some of these ideas, right? So another grip that we could use to set this armbar up would be a very loose grip on the back of the grip here, or back of the kimono, right here on the back of the tricep. Or in no-gi, you can sometimes use a loose C grip here on the back of the elbow. Now, it's important when I say this, these grips are very loose. The reason why you want it to be loose is if I just grab a chunk of gi, it does not matter where it is, and I squeeze it really tight, that is going to bring a lot of awareness to that area, and a lot of times people will start to address it, right? So what you want to do sometimes, I call it sort of flying under the radar. If you want a grip and you don't want them to fight it, just barely grab it. Grab it like it's not that important to you. Because like this way, it's very loose. It's not sending off any red flags right now. It's not pulling on them. But what's gonna happen is when I need this, I can always tighten up, right? So if I'm holding like this right now, barely holding, once it's time, I squeeze tight. You can also think about this too, if you burn your grips out a lot. Again, if I'm holding a pencil in my hand, or I'm holding a death grip, I'm still holding it. So I only need the death grip at the time of the move when I'm really going for it. I don't need it the whole time. So I'm just gonna grab and hold loosely. Now, from here, what I can do, there's a number of different ways that I could do this, but let's say that you have the good hip movement where you can simply open your legs and go for an armbar here. Well, then I'm here, I'm playing around, whatever. I pull the elbow in at the last minute when I feel ready to go, and typically this would be with a knee pull, pulling my knees to my chest, pull the arm in, and immediately going underneath here, and I can start to get this leg, or the legs over the head, and immediately begin to attack the armbar, right? So the idea was that we got to that same position, just as at the last minute. Another one of my favorites is the forearm pinch, right? So let's say that we're in this position here, and sometimes people feel very comfortable kind of being in here. I use this one a lot more in no-gi. What I'll do is I'll just have my arm resting on top of their hands. Now, I'm not even doing anything with it. I might be sometimes just like grabbing this. So he feels no threatening anything right here, okay? But what I want in a second is this arm is going to pinch over top of his forearms, okay? So from here, his arm's somewhere in this area. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start by pulling in with my legs, and at the same time, my arm pinches, and I'm gonna hook underneath of the leg. Okay, so it's all in one motion. I pull in, look, catch. And now I'm in a position where he's not able to pull his arm out, right? So we have over here, here. Back of the arm, the last minute, catch. And then we have this one where we're pulling in, hook underneath, open, and catch. You can also use the sleeve in the gi, right? Same idea. We can get a grip on the sleeve. And again, I don't want to start yanking on it too much. Ideally, you're just kind of like right here holding on to it, nice and loose. If you breaks the grip, right, go and break it for me. Okay, cool, no problem. I'll just grab it again. No big deal, okay? But then we can use the knee pull or whatever, the leg hook underneath. And at the last moment when he should be trying to pull out, that's when you start to pull in and we go. But again, by holding a looser grip, a lot of times people don't check it as fast as they should because they're not recognizing it, because I'm not doing this death grip. And if you haven't used this technique on them a bunch, a lot of times you won't see it coming. Now the last one, here's a good one for you. I used to use this one a lot on people. So I would start to set up the old faithful here, this old armbar learned as a white belt. They would get their hands in the bicep, right here, go ahead and grab your bicep just like so, and they would do this because the idea was if I grab this arm, if I start to open, they would be ready for it, and when I try to go, they would immediately just press this hamstring down and just shut this sucker down, right? So they're holding here, their arm is protected, right? Which it is if I go for this one. So what I would do is I would start to put my foot on this hip like I'm getting ready to go for this one, and then immediately I would switch off here and grab wherever I could get a hold of, sleeve, elbow, wrist, anything, and immediately cut the angle and switch right into it, like so. So guys, that's just a handful of ways that you can change up the armbar. I've either used each one of those or they've been used on me, like the C grip on the back of the elbow with the sleeve or the hand. My young black belt Chad, who back when he was a purple belt, he used to kill me with that sucker. Like I'd be in his guard and he would just have such a loose grip on it, and I wouldn't even feel it half the time, and he would be cutting his angles, putting me in armbar. So again, each one of those is plenty useful if you put it to work, of course. But again, whether you use arm bars or not, I want you to think about that idea. If you have a technique that's working really well, but people start fighting the grips that you're trying to set up with early on, then one of the things that you can do to make that technique work again is change the setup, change the grips a little bit, change how you're getting there. So this way it takes away that early recognition that they've developed based upon those grips, and then sort of makes it harder for them to recognize it coming. So that's something that's been useful to me. Wanted to share the idea with you guys. Hope it helps. Talk to you next time.